Hello and welcome everybody to this Azure Synapse Espresso. Today we're going to talk about Delta tables and I'm joined by Jovan today. Now, if this is the first time you're visiting our channel and you like the content, just subscribe to the channel or if you like the video, give us a big thumbs up. But today, Delta tables. I'm joined here by Jovan Popovic. Oh, Jovan, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Stijn. My name is Jovan. I'm program manager working on Azure Synapse Analytics, and I'm working on Serverless SQL pools specialized for Delta Lake and Lakehouse scenarios.
Okay, awesome. Which means you're the perfect person at this point at this point in time because we're talking about Delta today. So Jovan, can you please explain what Delta is?
Delta is data format that is very similar to Parquet, CSV, and other formats. But the main difference is that Delta enables you to update your data, to easily delete or insert your data in data lake. So imagine that you have a format that enables you to store terabytes of data on your data lake, but also enables you to easily update, delete data the same way as you would do it in classic SQL database or SQL data warehouse. So updatability is the main advantage of Delta format compared to Parquet or CSV. In addition to updatability, it has transaction guarantees. So Delta is guaranteeing that when you update something, it will be consistent after the update. So there will be no partial updates or dirty updates. And you can use this to implement some scenarios like error correction in your data lake, cleaning missing values, adding missing values, and that kind of data cleaning directly in data lake without need to load your data in database or data warehouse to do some cleaning. In addition to this, Delta Lake enables you to do time travel. So whenever you update your data, this data is not deleted. It is still on data lake. So you can easily go back in time and see how your data set looked like hour ago, day ago, and to see, did you make some mistake? Do you need to do some correction or to do something like time travel analysis? So technically it combines the best from open source formats like Parquet and CSV, where you store your data in data lake, and functionalities that you have in databases or data warehouses where you can use insert, update, delete to work with data and update data.
Okay, awesome. And as we know, serverless can also query this. And Jovan, you're going to show us this, right?
Okay, now I'm in my Synapse Studio, and I will go to Data tab, and here I have linked workspaces, and one of my workspaces is having this Azure Data Lake account, where I have my Delta files. Here I have a nation folder that contains data in Delta Lake format. I can easily right-click on this, create new SQL script, select top 100 rows. Here I can choose Delta format because I know that in my folder I have Delta Lake data. And Synapse Studio will create a SQL script that contains open row set function that is referencing this folder where I stored my Delta Lake data. When I execute my script, I will see that Synapse Studio returned me content of my Delta Lake folder. So I will just see all columns and all rows from this Delta Lake dataset.
Okay, cool, Jovan. But what is now the difference between a regular Parquet file and that Delta? How does it look?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Delta is not a new file format. So it's not something special like new format with different compression or something like this. If we go into this folder, we will see that inside of this Delta Lake folder, we have Parquet file. So Delta is created on top of classic Parquet file. So it is not some new format with new compression or new organization of data. The main difference between plain Parquet dataset and Delta is this Delta log folder. So if we go into this Delta log folder, we will see some files like JSON files and Parquet files. And here, Delta Lake is storing direct paths to the Parquet files that are in this Delta folder. So instead of classic Parquet files that are referencing all files within some folder, Delta Lake contains JSON files that have description of every file that we need to read in Delta Lake folder, and some additional metadata information about file types, sizes, and other information that can help us to more easily read these files.
Okay, awesome. So this basically means that serverless can read those Delta formats, but I would like to know more about how it actually works and how serverless is actually reading those things. So Jovan, can you quickly explain that?
Okay, let's see what is Delta Lake and what is Delta Lake protocol. Here I have one Delta table stored in Delta table folder with two Parquet files, file 0 and file 1 Parquet. And it has Delta log folder that contains one JSON file that contains file paths in this Delta table folder that some reader should read. So this JSON file contains information that in Delta Lake we added file 0 and file 1. Serverless SQL pool is able to read this Delta log folder and to parse this JSON file and to extract that file 0 and file 1 Parquet are valid files in this folder. So if we have some clients like Power BI, Analysis Service, or Azure Data Studio that would like to read data from Serverless SQL pool, they will send this openRowSet command to Serverless. OpenRowSet will read these two Parquet files, and it will get data from these two Parquet files in Delta table folder. This way, Serverless is enabling tools that are using T-SQL language to directly read data from Delta Lake folder. Now, let's imagine that somebody wants to update data in Delta Lake. Usually, you will use some Spark notebook to update data, and you will write some update command in Spark notebook, and this update command will be sent to Spark pool. Spark pool will find that data that needs to be updated is in file 0. It will read content of this file 0 Parquet file. When it changes data, it will create new file or two files or three files, in this case file 2 Parquet and file 3 Parquet, and write them to Delta Lake folder. When the operation is finished, it will create additional JSON file in Delta log folder. So before Spark creates this JSON file, all readers will just read old version of Delta folder. So before we created this one.json file, Serverless had read this 000 JSON, and Serverless thought that there are only file 0 and file 1, and all clients would read previous version of data. Now, when this operation is committed, we have this new files, we have this new JSON log file that contains information that we removed file 0 and added file 2 and file 3. Now, when we have serverless on any other reader that reads data from Delta Lake, this reader will read entire Delta log folder. We'll see that in file JSON, we'll see that in 0.json, we added file 0 and file 1, and in 1.json, we removed file 0 and added file 2 and file 3. And as a result, Serverless SQL pool will know that the valid files here are file 1, file 2, and file 3, and it will ignore file 0. This way, whenever you do update, any reader can see that some files are valid, some files are invalid. So Spark pool can do updates without need to physically delete old files from the folder. And any reader like Serverless SQL pool will just know what are the latest files that it needs to read in order to return the latest data to the clients.
Okay, awesome. So basically, this Delta Lake format allows us to just delete, insert, update values to those files in the lake. While previously the Parquet or CSV, those files are immutable, which means you can change them. And Delta Lake basically fixes that. And Serverless SQL Pool can just read them, which means that Serverless SQL Pool can now serve an actual relational type file format using a SQL endpoint. So any tool like Power BI or Analysis Service or any other tool that can use that SQL endpoint can now just analyze those Delta files on the lake, Delta format on the lake. So that concludes our video of today. If you have any questions, just type them in the comments, or if you have any requests for another video, just type it in there. If this is the first time you're visiting our channel and you like the content, just subscribe. And if you liked our video, give us a thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.
Bye.